The Gospel reading for today is from the Gospel of John, chapter 5, verses 19 to 21. Jesus gave them this answer: "Very truly I tell you, the Son can do nothing by himself. He can do only what he sees his Father doing, because whatever the Father does, the Son also does. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all he does. Yes, and he will show him even greater works than these, so that you will be amazed. For just as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, even so the Son gives life to whom he is pleased to give it." Jesus gives life is the subject of this Sunday. He returned to life the dead. But what's more, he showed us with his own life and his teachings and even his own death what real life is. He himself lived fully, and that's also the model he wants us to follow. There are three stories in the Gospels of Jesus raising the dead. They are the raising of a widow's dead son in a town called Nain, the raising of the dead daughter of Jairus, and the raising of Lazarus, who had been dead for several days. I would have expected the daughter of Jairus to be talked about today, but instead we have a text from the Gospel of John in which Jesus talks about how he gives life. Jairus' daughter is spoken of in another Sunday next year. Elijah and Elisha were the greatest prophets of the Old Testament. Both raised the dead. Elijah, the son of a widow living in Zarepta. The story we just heard Gerard reading. And Elisha, the son of a Shunammite woman. In addition, Elisha's bones are said to have raised a dead Israelite man when his body touched Elisha's bones in a hurry. In addition to the stories of Jesus raising these three people back to life in the Gospels, it is said that God raised people from their tombs in Jerusalem at the time of Jesus' death. It is written in the Gospel of Matthew: "The earth shook, the rocks split, and the tombs broke open. The bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. They came out of the tombs after Jesus' resurrection and went into the holy city and appeared to many people." Peter and Paul are each said to have raised one man from the dead. Peter raised Tabitha and Paul raised Eutychus. Tabitha was not a man, he was a woman. Excuse me. What the life of these resurrected people was like after this great and revolutionary event is not told. The most important thing in the accounts is that the prophet or Jesus or the apostle had been allowed to be an intermediary of God, and that many are amazed and praise God. It might have been better for Lazarus to stay in the tomb, for after his coming back to life, the Jews are said to have begun to persecute Jesus, and they threatened to kill Lazarus to him who had just a while ago been raised from the dead. It would not be nice to be killed right after you had come back to life. It is interesting to follow the history of the raisings associated with Jesus. Paul, the earliest to have written something that is in the New Testament, does not mention any of these raisings. Mark, who was the second one to have written biblical stories, has only the daughter of Jairus mentioned. And this story has then found its way also to Matthew and Luke. The raising of a widow's son in 9 is told only in the Gospel of Luke, who, by the way, wants to show that Jesus is like Elijah, but bigger than him. If you remember, Elijah brought back to life the son of a widow in Zarephath. The story of Lazarus is of its own, created by the author of the Gospel of John on the basis of Luke's story about the rich man and Lazarus, in which Abraham replies to the rich man in the hell, "If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced even if someone rises from the dead." And that's exactly what happened after the story of Lazarus being raised back to life. They did not believe, but from that day they plotted to take his life, and later how to get Lazarus killed also. No such a spectacular narrative could have been kept secret until the author of the Gospel of John wrote it in his work at the end of the 1st century. But yes, it made Jesus the greatest, for if all the revivals were counted, Jesus had as many as 3, the others having only 1, or if the influence of Elisha's bones was counted, he would have received 2 revivals in his account. When we talk about the resurrection of the dead, we cannot forget the central event of our Christianity, the resurrection of Jesus himself from the dead. It is told in all the Gospels and also in the genuine letters of Apostle Paul. This Sunday has been considered the Easter of the autumn, and it is therefore natural to talk about the events of the Easter today. The first question is, in what form was Jesus resurrected? I guess, however, he was not resurrected back to life in the same way as, say, the son of Nain's widow or the daughter of Jairus. Although in later Gospels this aspect also emerges and he is already tangible, concrete. The Gospel accounts of the resurrection of Jesus are very different from each other and also in some way contradictory. But I will not go into it in details. There is another question, also without consensus. When and where did the disciples first see the resurrected Jesus? It is also a relevant question. And what does all this have to do with what we can expect after we die? After all, it is said of Jesus that he was the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep. The most natural thing based on all the Gospels and epistles of Paul is to think that the disciples recognized Jesus in Galilee, where the young man in white had told them to go. There they were, dealing with the greatest trauma of their lives and returning to their former professions as fishermen. Jesus came, took the bread and gave it to them, and did the same with the fish. He did not come physically back to this life. He was appointed the Son of God in power by his resurrection from the dead. He came to them in breaking bread. That means at Lord's Supper. As well as in Emmaus, he took the bread, thanked God, broke the bread, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they knew him, but at the same time he was out of their sight. The experience was mystical, nothing very concrete. Paul is talking about the spiritual body that is not like this present earthly body. Now that we are talking about Jesus giving life, a lot of theology has come upon it in the life of the church. It can also already be seen in this Gospel of John. After our text passage, he calls people from graves to life, etc. And the focus has shifted to the life to come. Why do we preach so much in our churches about life after death, even though we have a whole life ahead of us? This is good to ask and to question. However, isn't life here and now? That's what we have. What happens after death? We have no definite information about. Would it be the case that because early Christians were persecuted, that was the reason why life after death gained considerable weight compared to this life, which was always at risk? This life could be lost, and fidelity was what was expected of Christians. They had to be faithful until death. Already in connection with the stoning of Stephen, it is said that he, full of the Holy Spirit, looked up to heaven and saw the glory of God and Jesus standing at the right hand of God. "Look," he said, "I see heaven open and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God." He knew where he was going, not to a gloomy death, but to Jesus, his Lord. These times of persecution and the kind of Christianity they have encouraged have seemed to have remained on top and characterized Christianity to this day. And therefore sometimes it seems that life after death would be more important to us Christians than this life. Conversion to Christianity has often been justified on the axis of heaven and hell. If you turn and become a believer, you will get to heaven. But if you do not turn, you will be lost. Thus, conversion to Christianity is often justified by post-mortem life options. Who wouldn't want to get to heaven instead of burning in hell? However, would there be anything else in Christianity? I think there is. I understand that Jesus has come to give us life. He says in the Gospel of John, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." Real and genuine life is found only with Him. In the same Gospel, Jesus is said to say, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." It means that real life with God is not found except through Jesus. His teaching is at the heart of the meaningful life. If his teaching is rejected, one will be misled. Jesus said that for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. It is through the teaching of Jesus that the true meaning of life is found. Jesus also said, in comparison to himself, "Unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed, but if it dies, it produces many seeds." We are connected to each other here in the world. We belong to each other. We are all like of the same family. We are members of each other. We see the face of God in each other's faces. What we have done to one of these least, we have done it to himself. So it's not of much importance to look at the life to come, but it is much more important to live in the here and now, the life that Jesus has given us. What follows death is a great mystery. If someone speaks about it with certain words, we can think that he is speaking without knowledge. We really cannot know what will come after this life. So let us live now fully and bravely. Let us be on the side of love. Let us be on the side of good, promoting peace and understanding wherever we are. There are a lot of people who say that the church is here because we are dying here. But I say that the church is here in order that we could really live here. It is clear to everyone that the example of Jesus is one that should be pursued. He loved everyone, he loved us to the very end. He called us to pray for our enemies and persecutors. He helped people get back in touch with others. He only condemned hypocrisy and the way in which God was used to rule and subjugate others. Jesus has come to give us real life, the life where the whole purpose of us as humans can come true, where we can become all that God has meant us to be, that we can live fully and give love wastefully and even give our lives away when the time is. None of us know, nobody of us know what is behind the border. Therefore, the best thing we can do is to live in love here and now. Have a nice evening. Go in peace and serve the Lord with gladness. Bye bye.